What is up, everybody? Welcome to day 11 of the All About How podcast. I am your host, John Knott from growingau.com. We are talking about the federal stimulus bill today. We're talking about what it means. We're talking about exactly what's included in that. I'm going to give you a little bit of my thoughts on it as well. This is actually the first episode that was inspired by an email to podcast@growingau.com. If you don't know about that, basically I'm having everyone listening sending email to podcast@growingau.com telling us something that you think is worthwhile to talk about here on the show. Could be entrepreneur-based, success-based, content creation, anything like that, building brands, all of that included. Go ahead and send us an email to that address. Let us know where you're listening. Let us know how we can shout you out here on the show, and we will talk about your desired topic. This is the first installment of that little mini-series. This is coming from a buddy of mine, John Yeckley. You can find him on social media at JONYECK, John Yeck. He wanted us to talk about the federal stimulus bill. He's going into politics. It would make sense. Hi, buddy. How you doing? Hope you're having a good day. Hope everyone else on here is having a very highly successful day, leaving the world a better place as well. Let's go ahead, roll the intro.
It's all about how in 2020 we're going to leave the world a better place than we found it.
So the federal stimulus package, obviously released here as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. The country needed help, simple as that. What we're going to do is we're going to try and keep this as light on the politics as possible. We are just going to talk about exactly what is included in the package. I'm going to give you some brief thoughts about that, tell you my kind of way I see things, and we're just going to go on from there. Let's go ahead and take a look at the numbers here. Obviously, $2 trillion is a lot of money. It's going to be good to know exactly where that money's going. Let's take a look at these numbers and see if we can't figure that out. So it's going to break down into a couple categories here. We have $153.5 billion going to public health, $339.8 billion going to state and local governments, $560 billion to individuals, $377 billion to small businesses, $500 billion to big corporations, $26 billion as a safety net, and $43.7 billion going to education. These are all broken down into those categories. I think those categories are appropriate. I think the amount of money is going to each of those categories are appropriate. So let's talk a little bit about what does this stimulus mean for us as individuals. So basically, it's going to be a $1,200 payment to anyone over 18 that is non-dependent. So unfortunately for all of us college students that are still listed as dependents, we are not getting anything on this one. Better luck next time, folks. Trust me, I'm there with you. I understand, but that is going to be how that works out. $1,200 to all 18 and older independent tax filers, as well as $2,400 is going to be going to couples who filing jointly, and $500 for every qualifying child under 17. Now, there are a few cutoff points for this bill. Anyone that has a income of $75,000 or over, you're going to start to see these checks begin to phase out, as well as couples and a joint household income of $150,000 or more. And then finally in that category, $112,500 is going to be the phase-out point for single parents with dependents. That's going to be the phase-out point there. Whether or not you're going to get this check is going to be based on your 2019 income or your 2018 income if you haven't filed your 2019 tax returns yet. And as I said before, college students, unfortunately, we are not eligible for the checks, but you know what? That's all right. A lot of us living at home. Let's let that money go to where it is better needed. But the one thing that is working for us college students that is pretty cool is we are waiving student loan repayments for 60 days. That's something if you're in college or just right out of college, you may not have to worry about. But for all of us that have been through the college system and have student loans coming up, we get to have a deferment on that for 60 days. That is pretty nice. There also are some retirement plan changes, and I'm going to read this right from Forbes.com. I think it's written very well. It's by Kelly Ann Smith. I really like the article she wrote on this, and this is where I'm getting a lot of the information from today. So let me go ahead and read what Kelly has to say about retirement plan changes. Normally, individuals who withdraw funds early from retirement accounts, and that's typically before the age of 59 and a half, must pay a 10% penalty as well as ordinary income taxes. The stimulus relief package, however, provides that coronavirus-related distribution of up to $100,000 will be allowed without the early withdrawal penalty being applied. The sum withdrawn may be recontributed to a retirement account within 3 years without being subject to the usual annual contribution caps. If it is not repaid, the withdrawal will be taxed as ordinary income tax rates over a 3-year period. In addition, the limit for retirement plan loans has been temporarily raised from the normal $50,000 to $100,000, while the current rule that loans may not exceed half of a 401k participant vested account balance has been waived. I think this is pretty nice. Essentially, this is just going to help out, I think, a lot of people who this stimulus package may not be enough for. They are able to take a little bit of an early cut from that retirement, assuming they do pay it back within the time period that we just discussed. I think it's going to help out and help some of those ends meet here over the coming weeks. Because the thing about this bill that I'm hearing from a lot of people that I think I can definitely agree with is that it's just not enough. We have a lot of people out of work whose monthly expenses go way beyond $1,200. And a lot of people are just complaining that it is not enough for the individual. And I can see where they're coming from there. I think that really does kind of depend on where you do sit on that curve, how financially hard it is hitting you at this point, whether or not that $1,200 is going to be enough to make those ends meet. The other thing I want to talk about is a lot of changes to the unemployment. Obviously, we have a very high unemployment rate right now because of this, and it's rising every day. So they've done a lot to help unemployment. And the one thing I do want to talk about is the 7-day waiting period for unemployment benefits has been waived. I think that's going to help a lot of people just get the help and the support they need immediately. I think that's going to do a lot of good. Again, just helping people make those ends meet. I think the same process was done with cutting the student loans. Give people, we can wait on those payments. We don't have to worry about those right now. Let's cut them. Let's let people take a little bit more out of their retirement accounts, help them there, and also let's help them a little bit if they are filing for unemployment, get those benefits faster. I think that's really very progressive on the terms of the country. I really like how we are doing that. The other thing we should talk about is it does affect rent in some ways. There's a lot of people in this country who are renting, so rent is being waived. However, the interest will still accrue. The only difference is the other fees, penalties, and stuff like that would normally come with late rent are no longer applicable. So I think, again, that's just going to help a lot of people out. They have been talking that the rent waiving, obviously being April 1st, it's kind of the day that's going to start hitting, may negatively affect the market. I think if we look at the market today, we can see that the market is definitely down quite a bit. We'll have more on that later this week. I look forward to, I wanted to possibly bring the market forward today. I want to give it a couple more days here to see what happens before we really start to address what's going on and whether or not it is the mortgage crisis right now that is affecting that. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later in the week once we kind of see where the numbers begin to settle. I'm thinking probably sometime around Friday or Saturday bringing that up and really kind of reviewing what has happened, because we went from such a market rally last week to a pretty low week this week. I think all the returns and gains made last week are pretty much gone at this point. I know I'm personally down in the market, so we'll talk about that later this week. As far as this stimulus package is concerned, I think it was very appropriate on the part of the government to release this to the country. Simply and very enough, the country needs help. We are in uncharted territory as far as the modern century is concerned. Obviously, we have seen plagues like this in the past with Spanish flu and stuff, but we have never seen anything on this level in the modern day, and I think new precedent needed to be set. I believe that is what this bill is doing. The country needs help. We were not prepared for this, and this is the help that the country required and needs. So I'm glad that we got it out. I think people will complain that it's going to do things to the economy. It's going to water down the value of the dollar, stuff like that, but ultimately, I think the way this all comes out to is the country needs help, and all of that stuff doesn't matter if the country's not standing. So I'm very glad this is coming out. I know there was some complaint about the amount of money that is going to big corporations. I am glad that is under some supervision. Obviously, there was that panel that was put in place to supervise that money. I also think it provides a good incentive and also now a strong arm point the government can use to kind of get some of these companies that are lagging in the process of creating ventilators, creating N95 masks, creating help. It can really provide them a point to say, all right, we did our part for you, now do your part for us. So I think provides a good leverage ground for some of those strong arm tactics to begin to take place. Also, hopefully it will just inspire most of the companies who haven't got on board with that yet to simply get on board now, and also support the companies that have been super progressive on it and helpful to this country continue doing what they're doing and make some of those ends meet for them as well. So I think it's appropriate. I think it provides a lot of good positioning for the government and other organizations to really begin to get some of these companies that aren't helping to begin helping. So I think that's pretty great. And also I'm just glad to see that something is being done to help the public, because we are in a very, very bad position. Again, because this is just uncharted territory, so we needed to make something happen. I think this is the first step to that. Whether or not it'll be enough, It's hard to say. We'll have to see that over the next couple weeks here, whether or not another stimulus package will need to be released. I think I'd have heard some talk about that, so we'll see what happens there over the next couple weeks. I do think that this one, though, was a step in the right direction and a good move nationally by the country. So really glad to see it. I really do hope this helps out a lot of Americans kind of get out of some of those dire situations. I think it does provide a small light at the end of the tunnel, a little glimmer of hope, something to grab onto, that things are not all bad. Those checks should be coming through soon to a direct deposit. The dates are, it said anywhere between 3 and 4 weeks. So we'll see when those exactly do come out. But I think when they do hit, it is going to help the country immensely. So really glad to see it. I'm glad to see that things are being made to kind of prevent the negative fallout that this virus is placing upon the country beyond just medically and health-wise. So obviously we know there's a lot of second and third term consequences to this virus, and I think this federal stimulus package is doing a lot to mitigate those second and third term consequences. Hopefully we're going to be on the uptick soon. We're going to start to peak and then come down from that, and we'll be able to get this country back to normal. But I think until then, this has been a good step to maintain the status quo a little bit. So I think everyone just doing the best they can, keep giving people time to understand that this is not something we dealt with before, and that new procedures have to be put in place, and that takes time. And right now, that's the second biggest enemy besides, obviously coronavirus, is just time. So we're doing that. I think the country's doing a lot, doing the best they can. And right now we just got to be willing to help each other out, willing to make the world a better place in any way we can. So I think the more we can do that, the better. So like we said, change yesterday's effect at the smallest level. We all can play a part in making the world a better place for those around us right now, even if it's just family, even if it's just friends. The federal stimulus package does a lot, but there's a lot that we can do as individuals as well. Just think that over, mull that over today on your daily thoughts, your daily routines. A lot of us are in quarantine, so we have a lot of time to think that over. Appreciate you guys listening today on day 11 of the All About How podcast. And of course, we have a really quick fact of the day. As many of you know, the company Patagonia, the Patagonia logo with the mountains is actually based on Mount Fitzroy in southern Patagonia. It's a real place. So thought that'd be kind of cool. The more you know, right? This has been John Knott from growingeu.com. Remember, everybody, I want you to have a very highly successful day today. I want you to leave the world a better place than you found it. We will see you here tomorrow on day 12. I got an excerpt ready from another podcast I'm ready to play for. It's going to be really entertaining, a little bit more lighthearted compared to today. John Yeckley, thank you for the submission. Really appreciate you doing that, man. Anyone else that wants to submit, again, that's to podcast@growingau.com. And with that being said, everybody, really hope you all enjoyed the podcast. We will catch you all tomorrow.